What it is the day after St. Patrick's Day. Hopefully you guys aren't hungover from green beer. And then we got this man. I got a couple bookmarks, and he apparently cracked a code on something yesterday about hiring. Got to figure that one out. We'll be back in a second. So, Ken, you would think after I don't know, a couple thousand videos, I would know not to eat a bunch of almonds before I go on the air, but I was sitting here starving and I found a bag of almonds and I started chowing them, and now I feel like I got them everywhere in my teeth. So if I get a little weird on here with almond picking, I'm sorry.
Well, it shows that you're actually a good person. That I will call you out and say that if you have almonds in your teeth, I'll be like, hey, it's all right. I'm not going to let you look silly on your show.
So Ken, tell the viewing audience, the studio audience on Internet Land, who you are.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ken McGarrie. I am the author of The Surprise Restaurant Manager. And thank you for holding it up. I am also the founder of Korgen Hospitality. And among all other fun titles, the Chief Operating Officer for Fabio Viviani. And that's where I'm at currently right now, opening a restaurant in the midst of Indiana.
So we'll go ahead and dig into it. You said you had a secret. Are you allowed to share the secret? You said that you went from one manager and one bartender? No, one employee.
One bartender and one server is what I had, literally.
A day ago.
Because
you didn't kidnap anybody, did you?
I did not. I did not kidnap, and I did not go against any of my principles of going out and just dragging people out. However, and I have to tell you what we've tried to do in the past to try to make it work. We went on the traditional sites. We went on Indeed. We did boosting. We went on Craigslist. We went on Culinary Agents, and we got some traction. But competition is very fierce right now. We put in what we thought that their guaranteed minimums were going to be. And literally because of the amount of staffing, we limited to where we're only opening for lunch to begin with, which kind of created a sweet spot because people usually have dinner shifts, but they might not have lunch. And there's a signing bonus, but weirdly enough, signing bonuses don't really move the needle because it usually takes 6 months to a year to it's $1,000, but it takes 6 months for you to finally get the entirety of it paid out.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing is a guaranteed minimum that is like you're going to make $150 per shift. Your shift are from 10 to 4. It's a 6 hour. You're going to make $30 an hour as a server or bartender. And that's just, you're going to get, if you make more than that, great. If not, we're going to make you a whole. And we went out and talked to people. And first off, we talked to managers. We didn't even, because I don't want to be the poacher. I don't want to be the person who walks in and just starts taking it. But absolutely say, do you have anybody who might be, I know you're a dinner spot. Do you have anybody who might be willing to pick up a shift? And by doing that, that's 10 to 4. They can still make their dinner shift. They work 5 days a week for us. That's $750 that they're guaranteed on top of whatever else. And today we went from having one and one. I just hired 8 people today, and they're all exceptional. And it's just people that are willing to try us out for lunch. And then once people find out who we are from a hospitality standpoint, and they like what we do, they'll probably want to work dinner as well. And then we can just open the doors and be flush. So it's the first time we've done it like this, but I honestly think that it's kind of a game changer in a market that's hard to staff.
That opens up some ideas because, even if it was a restaurant that has lunch and dinner, if they know of a restaurant, and I know plenty of restaurants that are open, like First Watch. Every First Watch closes at 2 or 3.
Right.
So maybe you're a restaurant place that needs dinner, and you can spiff some of your employees. Hey, you want to be home at night with your kids? Why don't you work lunch only? I'm going to market to people that work at First Watch or other places that are looking for extra money and say, hey, instead of having shifts that are all over the place, I've got 5 lunch spots, 5 dinner spots.
Right. And then because we targeted places that were busy during dinner, but didn't have a lunch, that had 0 lunch business. So we're the answer to that. And then we're not poaching from our neighbors, which I'm completely, I like to play fair in the common space. So
and you're also helping your neighbors, because let's be honest, if somebody's working 5 dinner shifts somewhere and making, whatever they're making, $200, they're making $1,000, $4,000 a month. It nets down to $2,800, which gets them $500 in their savings account at the end of the month.
Right.
That person's a little stressed. They're trying to pick up extra shifts. They're doing things. They're stressed out. They're tired. They're running around. Now you all of a sudden say, hey, we got some opportunities for you to work 2 lunch shifts, 3 lunch shifts, 5 lunch shifts. And now that person is able to get a little more money in the bank and have a little more savings. And now they're a better employee for that other restaurant when they're there because they're not as distracted by their financial issues.
Yep. It's pretty fantastic. We're cautiously optimistic that this is going to work. So if we find ourselves in this situation again, then we know that it's better to do a small part of it correctly with the right staff to show that what we can do instead of trying to staff lunch, brunch, dinner all the way set. In 30, 45 days, we'll be fully open. By that time, they'll know exactly who we are and the culture that we bring.
I love it. What are some other things you saw this week? So you said this brand's opening a new location every couple months, right?
Well, Fabio Viviani Hospitality is opening up a large amount of places. He's actually in 5 different spaces. He works in casino spaces, with brick and mortar, with virtual, with franchise, and with hotel. And one of our biggest opportunities that we have is we work with 3 different hotel groups in their spaces. So we just opened up a place. Boy, I'll tell you what, somebody is really wanting it's Nickelback, by the way.
Okay.
It's purposely supposed to drive me insane just because it'll make me answer the phone. We just opened up in New York and Chelsea in about a month ago. And because of that association, we've been able to open up several other locations with that hospitality group. And that's a totally different ball of wax of what it is to work in a space that's really dependent on hotel occupancy and what in-room dining is looking like. And that's, so all of it has changed kind of our conversations. We're doing a huge thing in the Morongo Casino outside of LA. And we're opening 8 venues at one time and a huge eater in the middle of the casino. And that's gonna kick off on May 4th. And that's an entirely different thing because the idea of why people want to eat in a casino is to get fed to get back to the game. So it's a totally different hospitality model. And
which is funny.
Great.
I was in Vegas with my team January 2nd through 5th, and we stayed at South Point Casino Resort on the Inner Strip. They've got an awesome spa, hot tub area, great weight room. It's not a lot of rowdy people. It's typically older people, and it's a great place. But what cracked me up was I went to go to breakfast, and thank goodness one of our employees was already in line. There was a line 60 people deep to get to the damn buffet. And it's a buffet. 90% of the tables were empty. The buffet's full.
Yep.
So the server is literally bringing you making sure your receipt, taking your money, and taking the drink. And thank goodness Darren was in the front of the line because I'm I'm not waiting.
I'm not going to wait for 60 people.
I watched as I finished my entire breakfast twice, had coffee, had a meeting. The line moved 15 to 20 people.
I believe it.
And I'm like, you're in the casino business. If this was a restaurant, that would be bad. But what the hell? What's going on here?
Well, it's interesting that we found in the casino world is that, and I'm telling you nothing that you don't probably know, which is those buffets have always been loss leaders. They always are. And because of that, they're not super huge fans of them. And with the COVID restrictions, a lot of them got shut down. And there are a lot of casinos out there that have not reopened them simply because that they know that they're a loss leader. And it's a great opportunity to put in a QSR style, grab and go, walk up, get something instead of it being a buffet, because buffets were not COVID safe during a certain amount of time, which is their justification for not returning to that business model. So there's a huge opportunity to go to existing casinos and say, this old buffet that you haven't reopened because you don't want to lose the money on it, let's turn those into actual spaces that we can maximize. And we've done exactly that. It's worked out really well.
Love it. Great idea. So a couple questions from the book, which, by the way, it's right here. You can find it on this thing called the interweb, the internet. There's a site, Amazon, it's Amazon.
Amazon. Yes.
So I actually did a TikTok video this morning with my team. They're filming me, and I kind of made me laugh because it reminded me of Google. But I heard a radio commercial the other day. No line. I don't listen to the radio a whole lot, but I had my daughter's Jeep, and the radio was on because I turned it on because I didn't have her little aux cord.
Right.
And the commercial was like, did you know that 93% of Americans listen to radio every day? And I'm sitting there thinking, so this reminds me of the Yellow Pages in 2010 when they were still trying to sell people ads in the Yellow Pages. And I'm like, guys, it's called Google. Like, stop doing it. Now you got radio still, pounding their chest about radio advertising. It's, Spotify. It's a lot of other places. But when I joked about the Amazon there, it said that. So I'm in the book, and I got two things I want to talk about because I think these are heavy hitting right now. So managing cost of goods effectively, page 156. And in here, your topics are, things that we go through, portioning and waste and theft, but also what's crept up, especially this year, is cost of goods, managing, knowing your cost of goods, because things are changing every week. I mean, a chicken wing one day is this, the next way it's this, the next day it's this. What are some things you've seen on the topic of cost of goods and understanding what you're paying every week so that your menus accurately reflect that, you don't lose your butt?
Yep. And it's huge. I was just dealing with this on a call about an hour ago with a beverage aspect, because we'll get something in and the price will change. And sometimes when you receive something in, it's hard to go back and say, actually, I was charged that much more. So how are you getting in front of these things to make sure that you're not paying more, or you're having to adjust your prices to meet what your proper calculations for your cost of goods are? So we have used several systems. I think most of us use inventory systems that will alert you, but we definitely have our heavy hitter items to where we just have a list of, okay, we know that if we're pulling in this item, we want to make absolutely sure that it's staying within that price range. But using like MarketMan or BevSpot or any of those kind of things, it will alert you when you plug in your invoices, because we do it on the daily. We don't wait till the end of the week. We're not going to, because by that time you'll never get back to it. It's just in the moment, daily, put it in, and you'll see if that's adjusted. And the other thing that I control just from a cost of goods standpoint is to broaden the conversation. I just did training 2 days ago with the staff here in Indiana on cost of goods. I train hosts and servers and bartenders on it, simply because they have just as much control over it, but no one ever has the conversation of why that matters to a server or a bartender. So it's actually in their handbook. So it's a conversation that we revisit often, but it really is inventory management that will allow us to know when those prices adjust. And if we can't lock in 6 month pricing, which we'll try to do with our food vendors, then we know that there's going to be a fluctuation. And things like chicken wings or avocados, just good luck,
What are you seeing? Are you seeing anything innovative out there with restaurants with regards to how they're pricing? I mean, some places are going market pricing. I've actually seen some restaurants that have gotten rid of menus, since consumers now know what a QR code is, and their digital menus are allowing them to proactively change prices more often. What have you seen out there that has helped?
Exactly that. We have one place to where a QR code is on the back of a postcard. So you walk in and everyone gives you a postcard, and then the other side's a QR code. And it allows us to do specials, features, pull 86s, update pricing, all of that on the fly. Yeah. Now we have to make sure that that's reflected on our website. There's really kind of two different philosophies on whether or not it's good to have pricing on your website, because some people will say, don't do it, and then when you adjust it, then it'll be fine. You don't have to worry about that. Others will say, if you don't do that, you might get people with sticker shock to walk in and don't expect for where your prices are. But I have had, in places that we don't have it posted, I have 100% made adjustments based on that. And then that way you're not having the conversations at the table, sorry, we don't have that item, or making the price adjustments. And I don't think that that's a bad move. However, some of the places that I'm in, especially the ones that are hotel-based, we get an entirely large range of people, and having the menu in their hand, people miss it. They just do. It's just, I've found more often than not, people have become less willing to do QR codes as a whole.
Well, what I've seen recently too, that I think is a bad move, but I've seen some restaurants that are putting in place price and putting in flat fees on their invoices. Hey, by the way, check your bill's going to have a $3 surcharge for food cost adjustments, blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea if you're doing it, but I think the problem is you're now relying on people to listen to the server and hear that. Because I was at a restaurant recently where the server said, hey, by the way, we've got, this $2 charge is going to go on your bill because of food costs. It allows us to not have to reprint menus, all that good stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, my dad and my, let's say my 19-year-old daughter who are playing on their phone, and my dad who somehow doesn't hear half the shit you tell him, and you repeat it to him. And he's like, what? Oh, we got to do this.
Right.
If you watch me on Thursdays, him and I do a live, and we always have a good time with each other. But they might not hear that. And then their check comes, and they look at it like, what is this? Oh, sorry, we mentioned that. No, you didn't. Well, you can't tell. Well, I did mention it to you. And I've seen it happen where bad reviews are happening because of that.
Oh, yeah.
And my comment is, don't add those fees. Like I cracked up when I went and stayed. Where did we stay? The Balot, was it? Wynn Casino. They had this giant waterfall up front. And they had a water surcharge on the bill because of the water shortages.
For the water feature? Really?
No, just for the hotel. And I'm like,
that's crazy.
I'm like, hey, jackass, turn your water feature off then. If the water is so bad right now, turn the fountain off and don't charge me $10 a day for water issues. But I think that's one thing that would allow it, that if restaurants had people, one, it saves you the cost of menus. I personally think websites and the phone allow you to see a menu better, not a PDF, but menu with some great videos, some great scrolling options, but it allows you to adjust the prices on a weekly basis at worst case, maybe a best, monthly basis. And all of a sudden you're not losing that money for that simple reason. And you don't have customers missing disclaimers, whether verbally or printed.
Yep. And there are some places, especially in the hotels, where we have to do an automatic surcharge, especially for breakfast. It's just reality. People don't tip on breakfast in hotels. And so we've gotten to the point to where it's front facing. It's on all of our things. We actually are trying to look through, can you click and hit accept before you see your menu so that you acknowledge that you've seen it? A lot of those things are real. My only challenge, and I would love your opinion on this, is when you're scrolling through, it's harder to do a menu navigation at the table if you're a server and you're trying to say, over here are our appetizers, and I really love the blank, and this is your entrees, and then your sides, and all of this. It's very challenging. You're just going to have to kind of do it straight off of memory, whereas having the menu itself. And do you find a difference in that?
I mean, it comes down to you've got to have a better trained sales staff, which is what I call the servers. Right. The servers should know. And if you're a restaurant with 5 billion items on your menu, that's your damn fault. But if you're a restaurant that's got 5 awesome, I always do this because I've got a goal. My goal long-term is to eliminate restaurant employees from saying the number one question. You know what the number one question that happens? What's the number one question somebody, when you first see them in a restaurant or anywhere, that they ask you?
Do you have a reservation?
No, how you doing?
How are you doing? Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? You don't give a shit how I'm doing.
Right.
And so my goal is to eliminate how you doing. And you can eliminate that with better sales training, which goes to the fact that, let's say you have 6 appetizers and you walk up to the table and you having a conversation. Is this your first time here, or do you guys come all the time? Because you want to kind of implant things. Oh, this is our first time. Great. Let me ask you let me get your drink order. Go ahead and look at the menu. I come back and I ask you a couple questions. What do you want to drink today? Blah, blah, blah. Come back. What do you love? What is your favorite appetizer of all time?
Yep.
And ask questions to understand. My dad went to a burger place up Mount Rushmore years ago. And the owner happened to be a server, and he actually watched the other servers who mimicked the owner that said, I want to make sure you have the best experience. What are your go-tos on burgers? Are you bacon? Are you eggs? Are you hot? And he asked a bunch of questions, and then he built the burger with him right there. And I'm sure he left with a $25 burger because it was built to his specifications. Well, it can be the same way. I ask servers all the time, what's awesome here? And they'll go, oh my gosh, man, you're going to love. Like I was at a place called Wings Rings the other day down the street. It's a franchise, awesome place. Mm-hmm. And they had these amazing tater tots. Like I had some bizarre name for them, but she's like, do you love tater tots? I go, I think they're pretty good. She goes, we've got the rock star tater tots. And I'm like, bring it on. And so I think that's how you navigate it. And then from a dessert standpoint, we've got some things we're working on with helping restaurants with desserts, but let's just say somebody actually, because about 70% of people, when you ask at the table, hey, who's ready for dessert? They go, oh man, we're full. We're good. But that 30% that walk up and say, who loves chocolate? I mean, most 9 out of 10 people are going to say, I love chocolate. Dude, you need the volcano brownie in your life. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And if they say, that sounds good, let's go. I mean, I think that's how you navigate it. And I come from that background. We had a boat dealership for 9 years. And somebody would walk in. We had 10-foot aluminum G3 fishing boats. We had 21-foot Triton bass boats. You had to make sure you showed that person the right boat features, options, Richie Young one time showed a guy a $80,000 bass boat, didn't bother to ask the right questions and find out he was trading in a $3,000 boat, which if somebody's trading in a $3,000 boat,
probably not
dropping 80K.
Yeah.
And so he gets back to my dad's office. He's all sold on the brand new Skeeter ZX250, which costs like $80,000. And my dad tells him what it's going to cost down in a payment. He's like, my wife will kill me. I mean, I'm more like a $200 a month guy. And he's like, Richie, did you talk? I didn't ask him, man. So it's the same thing here. So I to answer your question in a very long-winded fashion, which is what I'm pretty good at, is that I think that the servers need to be salespeople. They need to be professionals. They need to know the damn menu. Number one thing that crushes me is when I ask a server, what's your favorite burger? Oh, I've never had one of our burgers.
Yeah. And half of that, and I will say half of that is usually the restaurant, because they don't encourage people to go through the menu, and it's food costs. It's always, we can't afford to. Are you insane? First off, everybody who's training should taste everything, and you should always be doing a tasting every single shift as the items are being sold, so you realize why you're there. That is one of my number one absolutes.
You know what else should happen?
What?
So I've got a wife and 2 kids. I have a mom and a dad. I have a couple neighbors. I think every employee should be allowed to bring their family with them and have a meal and say, hey, we're glad you're on the team. You're working this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday night. Can you get the family together? We want to welcome you to the team. Like when people come to my office, my employees, we have MP sweatshirts, T-shirts, golf shirts, sweatpants, shorts, and Adidas colored shoes that match. Like when they get hired, they might quit the next day. Knock on wood, hadn't happened, but we swag them out and they freaking love it. And then I go, hey, what's your spouse's size? Same with a restaurant. If I owned a restaurant, which my goal is to by the end of 2023, every person, I'll say, you know what? I want you on a monthly basis. You've got a tab. Bring your family. Bring 5, 6, 7 people. I want you to experience and also give us your feedback. What are we missing?
Yep.
But that way you can understand the experience of the restaurant. I eat out 7 days a week. I've eaten at thousands of, I bet I have eaten at more restaurants than most operators have ever thought of in their life in the past couple of years. And it's the number one thing that really gets me by surprise is the number of servers that aren't, I can't like excitedly say something about something on the menu.
And it has everything to do with passion. My line is always, I don't tell you what to fall in love with on the menu. I just want you to fall in love with something and speak about it with passion. I used to have a barbecue restaurant, and 2 of my servers were vegetarian, and they sold the hell out of the 3-bean chili because when they talked about the ribs, they were not fans, but I didn't care. I wanted them to talk about it with love. And in our venues, moms and dads, we always take care of it because we know if you take care of mom and dad, they're going to support everybody being there, and it's big. It's huge. So
well, and if you get that husband, you get that server bring her husband and her kids in, and the mom and the dad and their neighbor. Let's say it's 7 people. Right. You got 8 people that are there eating. It's going to cost you $5, $6, $7 food costs. It costs you $50 to spiff one of your employees something cool they've never seen at a restaurant. If they've been in the restaurant business, they get to experience the product, but then all of their family is now supporting the brand online. That when the Facebook post comes up for the crazy mac and cheese, they share it. Oh my gosh, I had this last Wednesday when we were there with Matt. It's unbelievable. When we had our boat dealership, we sold boats, campers, and ATVs, and we had a rule. So we had mandatory 1 week off a quarter so that every employee had to take a week off, whether they had the vacation time or not. It was mandatory. You were paid. But one of those weeks also had to be enjoying one of our products. We had demo boats, ATVs, and campers, and we had company vehicles. Like we had employees that took, this is back in the 04, 05, but we had yellow wrapped Hummers. Here's a Hummer, which is an $80,000 truck. Most of you guys never driven. Right. Here's the company Hummer. There's a $60,000 Triton TR21 bass boat. Take your wife, take your kids, go down to Gatlinburg, go fishing on one of the on Lake Norris down there, and enjoy your life and family, but also enjoy what we sell, so that when you're talking to a customer, like, oh my gosh, the new rod lockers on the new Skeeters, the lights, how easy the latches are. When they experience the product, they sell it better.
Sure they do. And that's where you get to the passion aspect. That's why I also think it's important that you send your managers and whomever out to other restaurants, because that's so huge. And not in a way to where you're like, oh, we're so much better. It's quite the opposite. I go out and I oftentimes bring things back and say, oh my gosh, this is what I saw before. This is something that I saw. Like, I was doing management training with a training course as for our new jars concept. And in doing that, I've learned some techniques that I've now brought into training immediately, having to do with breaks, communication, what's happening now, the recaps, just some communication points that I never would have thought of if I wasn't exposed to that. It's the same with restaurants.
No, it's key.
Yeah, and if it's bad, I'll still explain all the things that I saw. I just won't ever say what the restaurant is because you never say where the bad things are. You just talk about the challenges.
Yeah. Passion comes through. This morning,
does.
We have every morning, 8:00, usually 8 to 8:30. This morning's went to 9:30. We have a sales meeting, usually 11 of my team on there. And one of our guys, I put him on the spot and I said, I want you to present this like we present to a restaurant, present it to us. And he's going through it. And I happened to notice that on Facebook yesterday, he shared a video of his son playing basketball. And I said, stop right now. I said, number one, when your son scored a goal last night in basketball, like, did you sit on your hands and just go, good job? Well, no, you jumped up and down, didn't you? Have that passion in this presentation because you suck right now. So that's something, the passion, but also role playing. Like, have your team training each other and talking to each other, because that is a huge element that is just missed.
Yep. It's
so
people like to live in comfortability. And the more that they do that, the less effective they are. That's for sure. So
on page 141 at the very bottom, and this comes in really handy now, being nimble. I mean, talk about nimble. I mean, shit, we were all little Razor scooters the last couple of years, like everywhere. But I was talking to our team this morning. We had this conversation, and I talked about that one gentleman being put on the spot. And I said, I guarantee if I asked 5 of you, because we have 3 levels of people in our sales department that don't do what's below them for the most part and don't do what's above them. And I said, hey, guys, moving forward, I want every one of you ready, being nimble to when next Wednesday I might say, hey, I want you to present this to me. Even though it's not what you do, you should know it. And so talk about being nimble within the restaurant space, even outside of the pandemic.
Sure. And I think the thing that was a huge eye-opener for me is I arrived in Chicago to work with a fantastic restaurant group. And I went into a new concept meeting and looked around, and there were all these marketing people, and they were young. And I mean, I just turned 50. So when I was there, I was like, 42, 43. And I walked into the space, and there's all these 22-year-olds, and they're all marketing, and they're all talking about, and I'm thinking, why are we having this conversation with them right now? Shouldn't we be coming up with a concept? Shouldn't we be coming up with a menu? Shouldn't we be developing what we're trying to do and then provide that to marketing so that they can then in turn take our ideas and push them out?
Yep.
And this company was forward thinking enough to go, no, it's quite the opposite. This is your core. This is who you want. And they need to help us because being part of the beginning means that they're invested in not only the ideas, but they drive the conversation. So a lot of the menu items did come from marketing. A lot of these, even the names came from the marketing aspects because it's what resonated with them. And by being able to include people that not traditionally I was doing in the past, taught me to be nimble. And I realized very quickly I could do one of two things. I could put my hand up and go, I don't agree with this. And then I'm stuck in being my old way. Or I could say, no, you know what? I'm willing to learn. Yeah. And it has kept me a young 50, that's for sure, because that pivot taught me a whole world. And now it's exactly what I do from every single concept going forward. Marketing is part of every single conversation from the beginning.
Love it. Are you trying to get me excited?
It's true. It's absolutely true.
I wasn't real sure where you were going to take that story, to be honest, because I was curious. But as you got going into it, I'm thinking,
sit outside.
As you're talking about it, I'm thinking like, restaurants a lot of times will say, hey, you might have a great space that you have an opportunity, or maybe the concept didn't work and you're going to put something else in that space because you got the lease and the equipment and you got the people. Having a conversation with marketing people and say, hey, what's going to work here? Yep. Because there are certain instances where you can look at markets. Like I've talked to numerous restaurant concepts and I'm like, who the hell gave you this advice? Like, That is a terrible idea where you're at. Like, you think college kids are going to spend that and you're putting this restaurant on a college campus? And then they're like, yeah, we didn't think about it. I'm like, well, maybe they should have read your book and understood to be a little more nimble and have smart marketing people, the geniuses like me on the front end.
It is big. I mean, we're picking out a space in the West Loop in Chicago for a new franchise, and marketing is a part of that. Because if all we're doing is listening to the real estate people, then they're going to tell us, how great we're going to do per square foot or what all their analytics are. They're not going to drive the conversations of how this location speaks to who we are as our brand from day one. So it's big.
They're also trying to sell a piece of property or a lease or something that
they
they
definitely have a vested interest in it. There's no doubt.
So you dropped some fire on us today. I got to be honest, it's one of my favorite conversations I've had, going a little deeper. How can we help you? What's the ideal person to contact you? There's your KorgenHospitality.com. Who should contact you? What can you help them with?
Honestly, the best thing I can do for the majority of people that reach out is I'm a great soundboard. I'm always somebody, because you can read on my website why I think consultants, for the most part, are ineffectual, because they go in and point at things and say what's wrong, and then they take a check and leave. So 90% of the time that I talk to businesses, I give them a prospectus of what I would do if I owned the place. And then I just go, good luck with that. If you need some help, let me know. But otherwise, see what you can create. I can't charge for better service or increased sales because I can't promise that. But I can give you the tools, and you can either use them on your own or take my help. And that's kind of how our company works. And to this point, every single client that we've ever had have been referrals. So it's pretty great.
Last question. Where does Korgen come from? Korgen Hospitality.
Thank you for asking that question. My wife's name is Morgan and Ken. So that's Korgen. And besides, it's a good name. And I think it's a city in Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere. But otherwise, it's when you Google Korgen, we usually pop up. So it's a pretty good made up name.
Yeah, I looked at that a few times preparing for this interview. I'm like, what the hell is Korgen? Like, I'm like, do I have his last name spelled wrong? And I'm looking at my notes and I'm talking to Gabe and I'm like, okay, I got it right. So that's great. And then, of course, you can find this book. I haven't read the entire thing. I've read chapters that relate to me that I'll eventually make it my way through, because I've got 100 of these from people like yourself. It's actually episode 103. And I'm going to put something out there that I keep saying that I'm hoping is not going to jinx us. 103 episodes. We've never had somebody not show up and have a conversation with us. So as we get deeper in these two, it's, the people watch the fire episodes and realize they want to show up. But I appreciate you being on. I hope everything is rocking in Indianapolis with the concept, and
thank you.
In nice chilly Chicago. And when the team's up there, I'll get back. I'll get with you and let you know in the America's Best team, because they're up there 1 week in April, 1 week in May. And hopefully you guys can hook up and you can see what we do. And maybe I'll swing up myself.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. Matt, as always, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, brother. Have a good weekend.
Okay.